Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Berkshire Football Stories Chat podcast. We haven't been around for a while, mostly because, I don't know, Rob's on holiday and it's kind of just gone away. It's just stopped for a bit. So we're very fortunate, though. Alicia Povey has joined me today. She was the only person so far that's put their hand up in the group. Hi, Alicia.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry,
that makes me sound like I'm a last resort, which I guess I am. But
well, you said yes, so it made sense to actually go ahead and do it. I was looking for someone to put their hand up. You put your hand up, and that meant we were doing it regardless of whatever else happened.
Well, I'm happy to be here anyway.
Wonderful. Well, it's been. It'll be. I've thrown the link out to this. We do this in a thing called StreamYard. It's a bit like Zoom, but it lets you record and broadcast. We aren't broadcasting it right now, so don't worry about that. But I put this in our little Facebook group, WhatsApp group, to see if anybody else wants to come along. So it's kind of going to be a bit of an odd one today. We'll probably jump back and forward with Lish a bit. If someone else joins, we'll ask them about their club a bit, see what's going on, and we'll just have a bit of an end of year feel to it. But Lish, we last saw you in the summer. You picked up the Football in Berkshire award for the best female player. I don't think we ever actually asked you about it. What was that? What was that like? Did I know you said at the time you weren't expecting to win?
No, 100%. Like, I can't remember. I remember a few of the nominees, obviously, like Nicole Barrett from Maidenhead, who I played with a bit that season, and is it Lisa from Ascot, the keeper? So some really good players, and obviously I feel like I'm like under the radar, although I do spend a lot of time on Twitter, so maybe that's going to change. But and I'd just come back from injury, so for me that was a big shock, I think. But I don't know, I was like really proud. I think personally I'd had quite a tough few years for football and futsal, so yeah, to get it was a big shock. So, and then I had, like, obviously Abby was there as my personal hype woman, so that was
Yes.
that was nice.
And if I remember rightly, I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't just you. I was in the same boat, but just you could see through the night as well. Everybody was just getting slightly drunker as it went on as well, and perhaps having your personal hype woman right at the end there, hyping you up as you lifted that award. That was Abby's fantastic at promoting everything to do with the women's game, and obviously in her new role at Ascot as well. But yeah, it was quite a fun night.
Yeah, I mean, I was suffering the next day, but yeah, definitely. I think like you guys and Abby, especially, like me and Abby kind of met on like Twitter, and it was through that kind of shared interest in women's football and women's football in Berkshire and I'm not going to say it, but Buckinghamshire at the time. And like I think, yeah, our friendship kind of has grown since then, just through that, and we've both been very supportive of each other. I think through some kind of personal struggles in terms of like injuries, and I had a bit of a struggle with a club I was at. So yeah, I think it was quite special for her to be there, because we don't really like see each other at all. I think that was only the sort of second or third time we'd actually spent time together in person, and it was very dangerous because we did end up having gin shots, I think, at the end of the night, which I don't think I've ever had a gin shot before. But
wow,
yeah, it was a special night, and I think the amount of people there and the kind of buzz just shows what football in Berkshire is all about, and I was just really happy to be a part of it. Obviously, sadly, I'm not in Berkshire anymore, but I still holds a special part of my heart.
It was great to see you, and it was a really good. We've got some joiners, which is nice. We've got Dan Walkley here, who I'm just going to add in. Dan, hello.
Ben, how are you doing?
Very well. You okay?
Very well, thank you. Apologies about no camera.
That's all right. I presume it's because you haven't coiffured your hair this morning or something.
Yeah, I missed my alarm this morning, so I've had to work from home, and yeah, it's one of them, roll out of bed.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, we won't keep you too long, Dan, because I know we've got hopefully we'll have a couple of people to get through, but just wanted to see how things at Tadley were going and what the hope over Christmas is going to be.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Obviously, we've not had a game for a couple of weeks. we were meant to have Nap Hill and Badshot Lee, two of the leaders in the league. But unfortunately, they were called off due to the weather. We've got Camberley is our first game back in the new year. It's the second. Who actually got a good result last night against Reading City, which I didn't really see coming, to be honest. So they look like they had a few new players, so it'll be a tough game coming back. But obviously, everyone's looking forward to the 10th when we host Bournemouth. So
I was gonna kind of bring Lish on in on this because so Lish, your new role is with Southampton Women. Have I got the right club?
FC Women.
Thank you. Right, I knew I was going to do
that. Don't get that wrong.
But obviously, you're sort of now involved with a big club, and Dan and Tadley Cleaver have got AFC Bournemouth coming up in the Hampshire Senior Cup. What sort of, and I appreciate Southampton are not Bournemouth, but what kind of can Tadley expect, and what can Dan expect on that day? Do you think just from, and I know you're involved in the women's club rather than the men's club, but what does that? Do you have any insight in what happens at a big club like that when they go to something like that?
I think probably as Saints go, and obviously I've seen it with Wickham to some extent. When you're playing different teams that you might not meet in the league, I think it's a really good opportunity for them to maybe change it up and try some of their new, maybe younger players or players that haven't got the minutes. And I think that's always, I think some people don't potentially like that, but I think that's always something I find quite exciting, because there's players that you won't have seen playing sort of week in, week out in the Premier League, or who've been like on the fringe of a squad, and they always have something to prove, because they're always going to be looking to get that next step up, or to prove that they belong in the first team squad. So yeah, I think some people are a bit like, oh, they're not going to play their sort of first 11, but at the same time, all of those players have something to prove. They're not sitting in a kind of position where they're making that starting 11 week in, week out. So I like it. I think it'll be exciting. I think there'll be players that you might not have seen before, might not have heard of, but I think I love those games when both teams have kind of a point to prove, or it's just a big occasion.
Dan, how many tickets have you sold so far?
But we have sold, as of now, 325, which is good, which beats our record attendance, which is great, which is what we wanted. But as Alicia said, it's good to see. It'll be great to see some new players, maybe up and coming players that are coming through at Bournemouth. I know there's a Redknapp in there somewhere, so obviously the name hopefully will pull some people in. But they won the competition last year. Obviously, it'll be there on the 20 mix of their under 23s and some fringe first team players. So I mean, you have to expect a tough game, but anything can happen on a cup night at Tadley. So who knows? Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Just before we let you go, Dan, because Rob is also here now. Hey, Rob.
Hello. How are you all doing?
Very, very well. We'll come to you in just a sec, Rob. I just wanted to say that you were here to everybody. Obviously, Lish, were you involved in those games like for Wickham at Long Crendon last year?
Yeah, I was there on that cold night, and I kind of, I normally obviously I do like social updates, but that night I did all the like videography, which was actually really fun. And yeah, that was, I was going to mention that was just a really fun night. Obviously, it was completely packed. Like I don't think like I've ever been to that kind of ground when it's been that busy. And yeah, the Long Crendon boys were incredibly up for it, obviously for obvious reasons. And like it's just an interesting matchup. You've got players from Wickham who've been like in with a shout of getting in their national teams, or like have dropped out of Premier League clubs, and then you've got the Long Crendon boys who have a different pedigree, but yeah, it was a great night. So I'd definitely say go along to any game like that, and to get an attendance like you said, Dan, like a record attendance is incredible. So yeah, just keep pushing it and hopefully get more people down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dan, thanks very much. We'll let you get back to your day job.
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers,
appreciate it. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye bye.
Rob is here. Hello,
Hello.
Rob. Are you still in New Zealand?
No, I'm in Australia.
Australia.
Yeah,
I get this wrong every time. Every time. Yes. How is Brisbane?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I have been in both, so I will let you off on this time because we flew into Brisbane and have spent 10 days in New Zealand and now back in Brisbane again. So yes, it's hot, man.
You look sweaty. You look sweaty. We are freezing.
Oh right, well yeah, it's just calmed down now because it's in the evening. It's 9:30 at night, and so I think we're only at 24 degrees now. So.
Yeah. Only 24.
Yeah,
exactly.
I say it's freezing, but Lish, I suppose I suppose it kind of feels like almost warm today compared to our listeners will be really interested in us talking about the weather, I'm sure. But anyway, let's Rob. I know we were just talking about the County Cup. I wanted to just kind of push on from there because you went to the Bracknell FA Cup game this season, and that was obviously very hectic. So a bit of experience. I suppose to me the County Cups have become really important now with the clubs, and obviously you've been involved in a couple, and Lish, you've been involved in a couple of these big games, and so I suppose just from a non-league point of view, Rob, what is it? Do you how important is the cup? And Lish, will come to you just after that, if that's all right. And just kind of I want to know kind of how the sort of the pro clubs feel about it, if you've got some insight on that. So Rob, I'll just come to you first.
Well, in terms of the pro clubs, I mean, we know they put out sort of under 23 sides and maybe players who are on the sort of cusp of the first team, but from the likes of the non-league sides, it's massive now because especially in the way the Berks and Bucks Cup has been realigned over the last few seasons with the way that sort of clubs slightly further down the pyramid are involved in the Senior Cup. I mean, we saw last year with Ascot getting the semi-final against Wickham and having such a fantastic attendance there. Before getting through to the final against Reading and having another massive day out. I mean, these are big games for these clubs. And, it gives them the opportunity to play in front of big crowds because the travelling support for the professional clubs is still there, even though, we know it's not going to be the first team. That people play in front of big crowds, and it's a big occasion. So you get drawn against a Wickham or a Reading or even a Maidenhead, and MK Dons are in the Berks and Bucks Cup as well. Get drawn against one of them, and you can look forward to a big game and a real spotlight on your club.
Thanks, Rob. So, Lish, how does it work? Kind of from a what would sort of a Wickham or an MK? Do you think they'd be prefer to be more matches, or are they quite happy with what they've got? Do you think?
I honestly don't know. I think when you've got, so obviously Wickham have their like B team, who they don't play in a competitive league. They all train with the first team, and that's kind of how they're getting. That's what their kind of career is at the current time. But they're always pushing to get, like you said, Rob, those first team minutes. And I think that kind of competition, like the County Cup, offers that opportunity. I'm not sure how it works at MK in terms of what their kind of development setup looks like, but I think these kind of competitions are the perfect opportunity to kind of put them in the limelight and see what they can do. And I think, like, realistically, a lot of, I mean, I don't want to sound negative, but teams like Wickham and MK end up getting knocked out of the FA Cup quite early. So I think like County Cups offer up a little bit of a different kind of a different challenge, and I think it's always good to be playing different teams because I don't know, it gets a bit samey. I don't know. I this is, as a player, what I found with the kind of with the league, and then it ended up being like the County Cup and the FA Cup, is you always end up playing the same leagues. It was like it was fixed in terms of like, we'd always get Wickham women. We'd always get Chesham or Maidenhead, and always get beaten because they're in the league above. And then at Maidenhead, I'd always end up getting Chesham or Reading. So you are kind of ending up playing the same teams, but it's always a different challenge and different players. I think it was last season when I was with Maidenhead and we got Reading away, and they did it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
As a player, I think I was injured at the time, not always injured, but I was quite disappointed that they didn't make more of a big thing of it, because obviously that's their younger players, but some kind of they've got like players in the like England under 23s, under 19s, and you kind of want to see them showcased, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. That's just my personal view on it.
I think it's certainly something that a few of us felt last season when that game happened, because it was a semi-final, and it seemed a bit weird that it was behind closed doors. I know Neil Maskell went, but that's because he's part of Maidenhead United. But still, that didn't seem. And I mean, I haven't spoken to the county FA, but I would hope that wouldn't be allowed to happen again, because that did. I know it was played at the Reading training ground, and that's maybe why they did that. But it still seems a bit.
Yeah, I feel like they could have found a neutral venue that would have hosted. I think their women's first team were playing at the Majeski that day, which is why it wasn't played there. Yeah. But at the same time, like, there's plenty of good grounds around. Like, get one of those.
Just one or two, yeah. So, Rob, we won't keep you too long. But how have you seen any football? There is no football. I remember I've asked you this already on a WhatsApp. There's no football.
It's slightly disappointing. I've timed my trip quite poorly in terms of the football viewing opportunities. There are a few A-League games on, both on the men's and the women's side, but the A-League ground, I'm in Brisbane, as I mentioned. The ground is a sort of 45-minute drive away from the centre, so it's a little bit far away, and I haven't really had the opportunity to go and see a game yet. There's a slight possibility I might go on Friday, but like I say, it's a little bit of a trip. But for some reason, the A-League is on at the moment, but all the other sort of domestic leagues, this is their close season. Well, the reason is it's the middle of summer and it's getting really hot, and football is generally a winter game even over here. So all the lower leagues and the sort of smaller domestic leagues, they're not happening at the moment. So it's just the A-League, and so I have to time my game watching quite finitely, I guess. Yeah, it's not really worked so far.
Well, Rob, we'll let you go. Thanks for dropping in. Much appreciated. And now me and Lish are going to talk about futsal.
Oh, I might actually stick on for that. If you don't
stay around if you like. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You don't have to go.
I'd quite like to hear about it.
I only dashed Dan off because he was working, so I didn't want him to get.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I've got nothing on. I'm all good.
Has Kat passed out downstairs on her?
No, she's still working.
Right.
These are working holidays for us. But I get to work 9 to 5 Brisbane time, and unfortunately, she's slightly more aligned with UK hours. So
okay. Well, Lish, let's talk about futsal, because there's been. First of all, am I pronouncing this right? I've long wondered this. Is it futsal or futsal?
It's either. So
okay, good.
Futsal comes from like football sala, like Spanish. So I say futsal because sala. But yeah, people say futsal.
Okay.
I'm not tied to either one, so you can do what you want.
It's not like if you say football and soccer, and Neil Maskell again getting his second mention on the podcast gets all animated about the fact that it's actually soccer and not football, and then there's half hour of your life gone. So tell us what's going on in the world of futsal.
So some exciting stuff coming up. So obviously, I think last time we spoke was when I wasn't in a very happy place with futsal in terms of the FA had just cut all of the funding to the national teams. They got rid of the national teams, which was a massive shame. Obviously, the men's team at that point were just preparing for the Euros and were told that they wouldn't be able to compete. So to go from that to now, they've just re-announced that there's going to be a men's under-19s, women's under-19s England team. And there's a new kind of operating like overhead called England Futsal, which is a kind of like committee which is working with the FA. So the FA have kind of said that there's like a 5-year plan basically with England Futsal is what it's called. And yeah, I think that it's exciting that that's happening. The men's under-19s have quite a tight turnaround. They've got qualifying in like the next 3 months, and there's no team announced yet. But I don't know. I've got faith. There's so much young talent in the NFS and the National Futsal League. So it's really exciting. I'm interested to see on the women's side because there's less young players, so I'm slightly concerned where they're going to appear from. But all in all, exciting. It's great that the FA have kind of, I don't say realised their mistake, but realised their mistake and kind of got back involved with it. I think it's been growing massively in the last few years. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
As you mentioned, Lish, last time you spoke to us, it was going one way and you were a bit down in the dumps with it. And now it's, quite an exciting time by the sounds of it. What has been the sort of catalyst for that change? Is there been anything in particular that sort of triggered us going back in the right direction?
I think there's a few things. I think the futsal community didn't really sit down and take that as a decision at the time. There was the Save Futsal campaign, which got a lot of traction. And I think we as a community aren't just going to sit there and be like, oh, okay, yeah, we won't have a national team then, when there's so much talent. And if you look at countries that do have a national team, we could be competing and beating those countries. So I think for us as a community, it was never going to be, we were never going to sit down and take it. And then I think more recently, obviously the National Futsal Series getting that BT deal, and kind of that kind of putting it on a bit of a, like, as a showcase. I think that's kind of made them realize, okay, it's potentially commercially viable as a sport. People want to watch it and it's exciting and it's something different to football. And I think that's a big thing. And then I think finally, I don't know if this was like, I think it's hard to know when they kind of changed their mind. But there was that recent kind of the video that went viral from the Association of Women's Players about the Women's World Cup. And FIFA have just announced a Women's World Cup. So I'm not saying that there's been like a catalyst, but I think like the futsal community have been fighting for it for quite a long time, whether that's behind the scenes or on social media. So I think there's kind of been a realization that it's worth it, and it's probably you're going to get left in the dirt if you don't do anything now. Like, as a country, we've got the infrastructure to do it, so I don't see why not do it, which they have seen, I hope.
I know you mentioned in terms of women's players where they're going to get them from. Does this mean we might see you with an England cap?
I'm under 19, so.
Oh, that's true. Yes, that was.
I'm not sure when. I hope that part of this plan is to see senior teams back up and running. There's a lot of talent in the NFS, and I spend most of my game on the floor, so I don't know. I don't know if I get the call up. But I don't know. Yeah, I think when the under-19s men's previously existed, they did struggle to find players, pure futsal players. So they did take academy players from football clubs, which I hope they don't do, because the kind of game understanding is completely different. And obviously those players are technical players, but they're not futsal players. So that's one thing I hope they don't do. So if they're watching, don't do that, please. But yeah, I mean, I'm always working and hoping to kind of get in the mix, but I don't know. We'll see.
And you've done a bit of TV recently, haven't you? With that on BT Sports. How's that been? What's that like?
Yeah, that was really cool. So that was when I was with Reading, obviously, and I'd kind of just come back from injury, and I was working. So a lot of the time I'd have to kind of drop out of games, which was a shame. And then, just someone mentioned to the NFS that obviously the work I was doing for Wickham, and didn't it make sense to have someone who actually had presenting experience to be doing something with BT? So I did a few of the women's days, I think 3 or 4 live on BT, which was pretty incredible. Like so I did it with Pippa Monique, who does a lot for Arsenal TV, and Steve Sidwell, both really nice people and like really enjoyable experience. And I thought it was all right, so that's good. I think you don't really think about the people like who are watching behind the camera. So yeah, I just tried not to say anything silly, and I think I did okay.
It was good. And what about? So I know you mentioned so you've moved clubs. You're playing for Reading Royals, and you moved down to Southampton for your new job. I think that's correct.
That is correct. Yeah. So yeah, I've started playing for Southampton Aztecs, who are in the league above Reading. So they're in tier 1 of women's futsal. Not doing very well. There's a bit of kind of not controversy with the women's league this season, but the travel has increased dramatically. So last season it was played at a central venue in Birmingham. This season so far, I've been to Chester, I've been to Preston, Taunton, Gloucester. So it's a pretty incredible amount of travel. I think we did 934 miles in a month, which is not paid for. So that comes out of your own pocket. So unfortunately, we started as an 8-team league. 2 teams have already dropped out because they just can't get the players to travel. I think the problem is because obviously a lot of women will play football as well. If you're playing football at a good level, you're also traveling a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, even with work, like I came back from Preston and the next day I think I had like Bristol away. So it's it's a lot of travel. I did St George's Park and then drove to Blackburn and then ran back. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. So we won't get relegated, but at the same time,
yeah,
it's not great, I think, for the women's game. But I think they're changing it next season, so we'll see how that looks.
That just doesn't bode well for the future if you're having to, we Rob and I, just in terms of like national FA competitions, the amount of moaning that you hear about sort of people having to go from the west to the east of England like once or twice a season is quite something. So the fact that you're having to do that, and obviously with your work as well, that changes. Go on, Rob. I was hoping you were going to put your finger up.
Next season? Yeah. How are they changing it next season? Is they going back to a central?
I think there's consultation underway. I'm not sure what the vibe will be. I think what I'd quite like to see is more of a like home and away. Potentially like look at where teams are geographically, because there are teams in the south that I think the most ridiculous thing I saw last season was Bloomsbury Futsal and Helvetia Futsal, who were both London-based teams, had to go and play each other in Blackburn. So like that makes no sense. So in my opinion, I think like north and south. So north teams maybe play home and away. South teams play home and away against each other, and then there's a central venue for the north, and when north and south meet each other. I think that would make the most sense. But I don't know. It depends who comes up from the North and South leagues and what the league want to do and what the BT kind of connotations are, because obviously they have a say in the venue for like how it's televised. So I don't know. I'm just a little player. I'm not involved in any religion.
And if we can, so you're not playing 11-a-side at all this season?
No, but because of work, I work Sundays. And I had kind of fallen out of love with it a bit when I left Maidenhead. Not because of Maidenhead. I think it was just I moved clubs thinking that it might be better, and then I just didn't like football anymore. Playing it at least.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of miss it, so I might look for kind of Hampshire-based teams to train with. But at the same time, I'm also training like 4 times a week already. So
yeah,
it's
not going to help the injuries.
No, although grass is much softer than football floor. So, it might be good.
I was just trying. I did have. I wanted to ask you a bit about because you would have had Reading women down at Southampton in the last couple of weeks, and obviously Abby's not here and I appreciate you don't know the ins and outs of Reading FC women, but I wanted to get your sort of take on because there's been a lot of talk. There was a basically. Sorry, what I'm taking a long time to say is a couple of weeks ago there was a Daily Telegraph article talking about how Reading playing at the Medeski suggested that there wasn't a one size fits all. Not all women's teams should be playing at their club, and it was behind a paywall, so I can't say I read the entire article. And it may, or did I? I can't remember. I think I did read the entire article, but it basically suggested that Reading shouldn't be playing there, and I think from when Rob and I have interviewed people on this podcast before, we got the feeling that actually the players really like playing there, and it's a nice ground and people and that's fine. I suppose I wanted to understand kind of your take on it, but also, where because I guess I don't know. Would you say Southampton as a football team are more a sort of fan base wise? Do they sound that feels like they feel like they're a bigger club than Reading?
Yeah, I think you're always going to maybe have that, like in terms of obviously Reading the league below, and even like Championship, when Wycombe were in the Championship, struggled for attendances. So yeah, I think Saints as a club are quite also sort of family oriented. They're a very friendly club, which I know Abby would probably shout at me for saying this. Women's football currently is quite a sort of family orientated kind of following, partly because of the pricing. Obviously Premier League prices people out, especially families. So I think maybe we as Saints do better because we've already got kind of a family orientated club. So I think there's that. And yes, Southampton fans they will turn up to every game. Like the women's team, the fans are just incredible. They like Blackburn away. It was tipping down with rain. It was awful, and I think it sounded like we had more fans there than Blackburn. And that was at their main. That was at Ewood Road. So yeah, I think Saints probably are in a good place in terms of having all that existing fan base, and I think I think St Mary's makes sense as well for us, kind of growing as a club. But I think like you've got to take into account what players want. Like I can't see why would you want to be at a WSL club playing at, I'm not going to say a rubbish ground, but like a small ground that doesn't feel like there's the occasion. And I think it helps play, like if you're playing, for example, playing at St Mary's, you've got teams that are turning up from much smaller grounds, aren't used to kind of the occasion. Like you turn up and in the kind of corridor with the changing rooms, they like rebrand it every match day for the men's and women's. So it's got all of the women's players on the walls in sort of vinyl graphics. And I think it was actually Reading. I was in the tunnel and I heard one of the Reading players say, "Oh, that's really nice that they do that." So it kind of, I don't know, it's a maybe a bit of mind games as well, which helps. But I don't know. It's a tough one because you don't want a big stadium like the Medeski looking empty. But at the same time, like we kind of fill one side of St Mary's so that everyone's kind of packed in, and it creates that atmosphere in one place. Because if you use the whole stadium, then it's silly. But you need space to grow. So I don't know. I don't know if there's one right answer to it.
No, and I think the main. Sorry, Rob. I know you wanted to ask something. I think my main overriding feeling was that if there genuinely was another ground suitable within the Reading area, then they should go and they should play there. But there simply isn't. There's not a ground that could easily accommodate 1,000, 1,500 people every week. And I know some people say, well, couldn't they go and play at Reading City? But I don't think the infrastructure, and I apologise to anybody from Reading City listening if they disagree with me, and do feel free to come on and tell me. But I don't think that could necessarily cope with that week in, week out. They'd have to build something specific to do so. And certainly the TV coverage as well would be an issue. That's not an easy thing to fix.
No, I think we as a club played at AFC Totton last season, which is a really nice ground, and we've played one game there this season just because of a clash. And like, the Wi-Fi is potentially not as strong as St Mary's, and like we went to another ground this season away, which doesn't have an ISDN line, so we couldn't do live commentary, which we try and do for every match. So it's things like that. Like, you want the women's game to grow. You want people to be able to access live commentary, to have the best possible like gantry facilities, so people can give it that coverage. So you want good grounds. And I'm not saying that non-league grounds aren't good grounds, but you want them with the kind of infrastructure, like you say, so that you can grow the game, so that then you can move on to the bigger stadiums and fill those.
We've got another joinee. Oh, Rob, you had a question. Sorry, let me just introduce Andrew Batt is here. Hi, Andrew. Rob had a question for Alicia, so we'll just do that and then we'll come to you, Andrew.
No worries.
I think it might be my last question from me because my battery's about to die.
Good one.
Have you seen much of an uptick in the attendances and support around the women's game following the Euros in the summer?
Yeah, I think we had like record season ticket sales. I think we actually did the best out of most championship clubs. But again, I think that's what I was saying with before, that Saints have a really good following already. But yeah, we've had really good attendances. I think we've beaten some WSL sides in terms of attendances. So Saints are in a really good place, and as a club, just constantly push it. And I think it's in a good place, and it's only going up. So, and I think because we were lucky enough to host Euros games, that's going to be people in Southampton that might not have gone to a game before, have gone to an England game or a Northern Ireland game, and have then realised, oh, actually, yeah, there's women's football in Southampton, and have turned up to some of the women's games. So, yeah, I think there's definitely been kind of more uptake. But I think that's a lot of clubs. Like, I've sat through a lot of meetings with WSL Championship clubs about how you use that hype and turn it into ticket sales and use it in terms of marketing. So I think a lot of clubs were very aware that they needed to make the most of it, and I think Saints and a lot of clubs, to be fair, have done really well at doing that. I think attendances are massively up. Like, I think I saw something about social media followings as well of women's teams has also gone sky high. So yeah, I think we've done all right at kind of transferring fans from the Euros to women's football more generally.
Excellent.
Good to hear.
Thanks, Alicia. Are you done, Rob? Is that you?
I think that might be me.
All right, mate.
Sorry, Andrew, it's nothing you said. Don't worry.
Not yet.
Enjoy Brisbane, Rob, and we'll see you soon.
Will do. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Lish, how much longer have I got you for?
This is my lunch hour, so.
Oh, fine. Well, you should probably get something to eat in a minute. We'll just do a little bit of Wokingham and Embrook with Andrew, I guess, if that's all right, and then we'll wrap it up and we can all go and have something to eat. Andrew, how are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I feel like I'm doing a radio show now. This is good. I've got an idea that I might do this a bit more regularly. I quite like this.
Quite good.
Obviously it's possibly not been a season that's gone quite the way that maybe Wokingham had hoped. Not necessarily kicked on from last year, would you say?
I think
if you I say this, I haven't looked at the league table lately, so I also don't know.
Don't bother. I think the league table is a little bit of a false position. Yeah, Matt, our new manager's come in. We've had a lot of new players, and they're starting to gel. The team spirit and the confidence is really, really high, and we're in the fortunate or possibly unfortunate position. We've played 6 or 7 games more than most of the other teams, so we've got nothing now until the second week in January. Gives the other teams a little bit of time to catch up with us, and we'll see where we are. We'll see where we are then. But I think most Wokingham and Embrook fans are pretty optimistic. The performances haven't really been reflected in the results, but they're picking up, and we're getting there.
Lish, with Southampton Aztecs, is that something you can say, or is it just not going very well at all?
I think we've got better. We had quite a tough start to the season in terms of we had 2 of the best teams. And I mean, arguably our last loss was a 3-0 loss, 2 freak goals. We could have scored 3 or 4. So yeah, performances are getting better. I don't know. Futsal's quite. I don't know. I think it's futsal's harder in terms of maybe football. Andrew, you can correct me here, but you'll get a starting 11, like you say, that gel really well, and then that stays like that for 70 minutes. Whereas in futsal, you're constantly changing players, so tactically decisions can really impact you, and I think that's maybe what we struggled with as a team. But
okay,
yeah, hopefully we're always hoping we're on the up.
I would hopefully. Andrew, obviously, Wokingham have well, no, we sort of discussed that. There's been a few changes though, and for a long time you could pretty much bet what a Wokingham and Embrook squad at the start of the season would look like, and probably what a starting 11 would look like. Have those changes? Is that something that had been felt needed to happen, or is it a shame?
It's a shame because some of the people that left had been with the club for quite a few seasons. They left shortly after the previous manager, Elliot, left. Didn't follow him because he didn't go anywhere else as a manager. But as I said, Matt, who's come in, he's used his contacts, particularly from Surrey area. And I think now we've got a settled squad. I mean, going back a couple of months, you didn't know who was going to be playing, what new faces we're going to have. But we've got to the stage now where we've got a reasonably settled side, and they're starting to get following amongst the fans, which is good. I'll just pick up one thing that Alicia said. As you know, I go around lots and lots of places taking photos, and certainly with regard to women's football, I've noticed an uptick at kind of like Woodley United, at S4K. Some of the teams that I've been photographing, they've got now a fairly regular bunch of supporters, and it's really, really encouraging.
That's really interesting to hear, because, and I don't mean this in any way disrespectfully, but those are park pitches they're playing on. They're not playing in grounds. So the fact that people are turning up for their games, and actually, maybe this goes into something I wrote yesterday about just making sure your fixtures and results page is up to date on your and having a website. That makes a huge difference in people knowing where and when the games are.
Twitter, I would say, is probably the most used source of what's going on. Certainly for me, when I'm over the last couple of weeks, when I've been trying to find a match to go to, kind of like following the likes of, let's say, Finch Hampstead or Cholsey, which it was postponed a couple of times. Just kind of like knowing what's happening. But going forward, I think, if clubs want to attract more people, they need to interact with social media as much as they can, because, as you know, I mean, there are countless ground hoppers that will want to tick off the ground, even if it's just once, but get them there once and they'll come again. I think that's maybe why, I mean, Abbey would be best place to answer this, but Ascot versus Windsor last week was free entry, and they got, I think, a crowd of over 300, which it was one of the only matches on last Saturday, and I think they did really well outside. I mean, it was really good. They had about three Santa Clauses wandering around. Obviously one real and a couple of fake, but they had like a craft market in the sports bar, and it was a really good atmosphere. And I'm sure that they've got people that went there that will go again, which was really, really nice. But for interacting with supporters and potential supporters, I think Twitter and other forms of social media are invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in your role list, you find that I presume you're kind of across a website and social media and stuff, and like I think it's incredibly important now that clubs go back and look at their websites and get them up to speed, because obviously, and I don't think necessarily Twitter's going to stop working, but the danger, it's just, I think it's a little wake up call at the moment that actually your website is important. The search traffic, people looking for your results is incredibly important.
And I mean, obviously the the other source of fixtures is the very good fixtures tab on Football Budget. But no, I mean, I've used that. I mean, that's really, really good. And as you know, I message you now and again to tell you that things have changed. If you're searching for a club on social media, then you're gonna end up at a website. So we're fortunate at Wokingham and Embrook that we've got a team, 3 or 4 volunteers that contribute to it, and we update it with news 2, 3, 4 times a week, which is really, really good. I know not every club has that luxury, especially at step 5, step 6, but it's important and it will pay off. The investment in someone's time will pay off. It might be difficult to measure, but it will.
Yeah, it's certainly a long-term thing, and I suppose in terms of importance then to both of you, what is the most important? Is it a website? Is it social media? Is it just kind of what? So I suppose in your roles, what is the most important part of it that you in terms of what people see? What is it that you think, if you had to drop everything and focus on one thing, what would it be? Lish, we'll start with you.
I think that like a website is the most kind of what's the word? You can give the most variety on a website. Like in terms of like everything we do, other than like Instagram. Although to some extent Instagram leads back to the website. So like obviously I look after like all of the features. So like editorial side, like feature videos. Like realistically, they all sit on the website as well. They sit across social media. It might not be where people kind of ingest that content, but it's all there on the website. So if you got rid of like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, well, I don't really use TikTok, but like everything can sit in a website. So I think, I don't know, it's a bit old school, but I'm going to say website for me.
Andrew, what about you?
I'm not disregarding the importance of websites, but I think 90% of the teams that I cover don't have a website. We're talking like, as Tom will know, Bracknell Sunday League. I mean, the club's only interaction with other people is through Twitter or other forms of social media. I think, once you get to a higher level, and by higher, I'm only talking like combined counties, then the website is going to be the first port of call for any potential visitors, and it's the thing that you can, as Alicia said, the thing that you can create the brand image, and you can convey so much information. I mean, and it will take people to like contact pages. I mean, I often go to a club if I don't know where they play. I'll go see where their postcode is and take it from there. Not always something that's immediately visible on Twitter or other social media, but so don't. I'm not saying we're underestimating the importance of Twitter and the like, but I think for people probably outside the locality of where the team's based, it's important.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Lish. Steve Jinman is here. I was going to wrap up, but Steve has arrived. If either of you need to go, do feel free. Lish, you've done a fine 45 minutes there. If you want to go and grab some.
Yeah, I might have to. I've got some website content to do.
Goodness me.
Lovely to speak to you all, and
You too.
if you ever need more info on futsal,
please let's not leave it too long next time. We'll speak soon, Lish. Thank you, mate.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. I'll stay.
Hey, Andrew and Steve Jinman, hello. We'll keep this brief because I don't want to keep you for too long, and we've managed to eke this out to 49 minutes and 21 seconds so far. So we've had a good range of people on. Steve, Maidenhead United. I want to say super fan, but just historian. Is that fair? What would you say?
I suppose supporter. defender of the faith. That might be a better. given my varied roles around the club, that's probably all encompassing.
No, excellent. It's I would say from outside looking in, Maidenhead United are having an excellent season.
Well, I would say it is possibly the first season in the National League aside, but obviously we had all the momentum of the Championship before that. This is looking like it could well be our best season in the National League. Dare I say it? Not even a hint of a relegation battle. Which,
I mean, that division is as it always is very close from top to bottom, isn't it? You're just as close. If you're in the middle, you're as close to the playoffs as you are to going down, really. So actually, you're full of hope. So what's been the difference here this year?
Well, it's been since December last year, actually. So a year now of a different strategy from the management, focusing on defence. I mean, it was required because we released goals left, right, and centre last autumn. But started with the signing of goalie Dan Gole, the Hungarian goalkeeper from Peterborough, on loan initially, but then made permanent. Will de Havilland was then signed on a contract for the following season, probably our standout defender, having signed the previous time. And then all the way through the summer, all the key signings were defensive. So we signed the Temi from Bracknell. I know he's not featured so much, but he's one for the future. Zico from Oxford City, again, having a really good season in the National League. And then we've got Pekba, he can play centre-back, left-back. So all across the defence, we're really solid now. And we've got our reserve goalkeeper as well, Alexis. Again, when he's been called upon, he's been brilliant too. So really, it's it's that old cliche, that Don Howe's phrase, we're starting with a point. So, okay, we're not as free scoring up front, but pretty much we're deep into every game. Apart from probably the opening day of the season, 3-0 at Notts County, every week we've either been a win, a point, or very close to snatching one.
And so, do you think? Obviously, Alan Devonshire has been in charge for a long time. We are still waiting to do part 2 of the Devonshire years, but I think we need to wait till it's post Devonshire. Do you think he is the glue that keeps it all together? Would basically, if it got to the point where Alan decides to call it a day, is that a massive concern, or do you feel like the club is in a sort of stable position now?
I mean, he's like, I suppose, he's the club's Ferguson, Wenger, take your pick of great managers, and transition in any walk of life, let alone football. We'll refer to politics this year, of course. It's difficult, isn't it? Yeah. Identifying that person who's not only, it's easy to find someone who's got the right skills, that sort of thing, but are they right for the club? And I think that's the really important thing, because Alan Devonshire is clearly, and Maidenhead United are a perfect fit, and that's with. And that takes into account his relationship with the chairman, Peter Griffin, but obviously the previous chairman, Roger Coombs, who he worked with before. It's always just that right, and it's created this culture of success. So whoever and whenever that may happen, it's a really, really difficult decision. Yeah.
That's really positive. I think it's been a long time since Wokingham and Embrook, or Wokingham Town as they were in Maidenhead, have been in similar divisions. And Steve, I suppose you may well remember a few of those clashes. I'm saying this. I presume they've been in the same division.
No, you're right. I mean, I can remember Wokingham getting relegated from the Premier Division, and that was a big match when they came down and we played. We had over 200 people at York Road, because obviously there was a substantial away following. Steve Darlington, I think, was the striker, and then obviously away matches as well for 2 or 3 seasons. And in fact, I think one fact: the last time I attended a Berks and Bucks Senior Cup replay was at Wokingham at Finchampstead Road, and replays ended shortly after that. I think that's a kind of a marker in my mind of that sort of era.
I can remember winning. I think we won Berks and Bucks Cup at York Road. Probably early to mid 80s.
Right.
Could have been against, Tom, Bracknell.
Believe it or not, that would have been the last time they've held the final at York Road.
Oh wow!
Yeah, in the early to mid 80s, wasn't it? Probably 83, 84, 85.
I was going to say 83, 84. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a wondrous strike from Richard Evans, I think. I mean, it's a long time ago now, but I can remember that. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're ending the year on a very positive note. Andrew, you obviously high hopes for Wokingham next season. Where do you give me a little hint, little prediction of where you think you might end up?
Mid-table. I think. I mean, we're like 2 or 3 or 4 off the bottom at the moment. But as I said before, I think it's a false position. I think we're going to pick up points. Our recent form has been pretty good, and I think that's going to carry on into the new year. I'm sure. Well, I know that the team have been training hard, and they will continue until our next match, which I think is against Hollyport. That will be an important one. But no, I think mid-table will be good for this year, and then we've got something to build on for next season.
Excellent. And Steve, what about you and Maidenhead?
Well, our best finish in this division is 12th. So matching or even beating that would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'm obviously careful how things come back to bite you. Before the match at Maidstone about a month ago, we were talking about how, well, if we win today, we'll be in playoff for 7th. We could there, and Maidstone hadn't won since August, I don't think, or something like that, and they were comfortable 4-2 winners. 3-2 winners that day. So yeah, so tempered optimism, I think. But 11th or 12th would be amazing.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to wrap this up there, unless anybody's got anything else they want to add. Nope. Okay. Well, just to say thank you to the guests on today's podcast, which was an odd thing, and I think we might do it again. Actually, we had Alicia Povey, who was on for the majority of it. Rob Davies called in from Australia, from Brisbane, which was lovely to speak to him. It's been a few weeks. Dan Walkley from Tadley Cleaver popped in to say hello. We've got Andrew Batt still here with us from Woking and Embrook, and Steve Jinman from Maidenhead United. So we'll wrap it up there. Go and have a look at the website, subscribe to this podcast, and all of those sorts of things. We'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Have a good Christmas.
See you, Tom. See you, Andrew.
See you. Take care.